Hi everyone. So this is video number 6 in the Critical Essays series, and it's the second of them where we're going through the specifics of the main paragraphs in the Critical Essays. So the last video, which I presume you've watched before this one, talks about using the opening statements in the paragraphs. This one's going to look at how we use evidence within those paragraphs, which we'll then go on to analyse, which will be the next video. So, using evidence. Basically, we're quoting from the texts in order to then analyse examples of the author's use of language. Okay, you'll have done this before in essays at school. Quotes need to be accurate and they need to be an appropriate length. So, as I'll show you in a couple of examples, there are sometimes people look at their quotes and they think what they should do is narrow them down to like just a couple of words. That's what the analysis does, but where possible, you want to try and use like whole sentences or whole sections or whole stanzas of poems if they're quite short. The other thing in poetry is that line division matters, as I will show you. So where the poet takes a new line, you've got to do that as well, because it matters to the analysis in poetry. It doesn't matter in prose, so like non-fiction or short stories. It doesn't tend to matter in drama, with the exception of things like Shakespeare. But in drama, when you are putting in the quotation, you should also put in the name of the character who's speaking, particularly if you're quoting more than one character at a time. Obviously, then it becomes really important. So I'll show you here. So this is the opening stanza from a poem called Visiting Hour. When people write about this, a common mistake that you see at the start is they want to write about that combs my nostrils part, that metaphor. So what they do is they write their statement and then their quotation is just the line combs my nostrils. But that line on its own is completely out of context for the person reading the essay, and if they don't know the poem, then they end up confused. So if you're going to analyse anything from that first stanza, you would quote the entire stanza. And as you can see, you would match the line division. So the original stanza is written in 4 lines, my quotation is written in 4 lines. The original stanza has got, the last words in each line, smell, nostrils, along, and corridors with a full stop. Same in the quotation. Always make sure the poetry is the same. When you're doing prose, that doesn't matter. So this is a little extract from a text called Letter to Daniel. If you were quoting that, again, sometimes people make the mistake of trying to make their quotes too short. So they'll do things like just try and quote that days have melted into night and back again, and then analyse that. And the analysis might be very good, but you're taking, a few words out of a longer sentence and you're again taking away the context. So if you were going to be analysing anything in that little example that you've got there, be looking for you just to quote the whole sentence. But as you can see, line division doesn't matter here. You just write it out however it fits on the space in front of you. So how do you select the best evidence? Because that's a key thing when it comes to the exam, obviously, or for those of you doing communication courses when you're writing the essays that you're submitting. It's not just about throwing down, either the first 5 quotes that pop into your head or the first 5 examples for which you can remember a wee bit of the notes from the start of a poem or something like that. You need to give a range of evidence across the whole text. There needs to be something from the very start, there should be something from pretty much the very end, and then you should have a selection from the rest of it. It might not be perfectly balanced across the entire text, particularly if you're writing about something kind of longer, a long non-fiction piece or one of the plays, for example, but you do need to give the marker a clear sense that you have read and understood the entire text, and a surefire way to undermine that is to only use quotations from one narrow section of a text. The evidence that you use should be determined by the essay question. We sort of touched on that before with essay questions anyway, so that's something that you should already sort of have in your head. And the whole thing about being able to do this, being able to sort of find the right evidence and then analyse it, you need to really, really know the texts. So the thing that I said in the How to Read video about reading and rereading, that's really important. These need to become pretty much automatic to you. Now I'll show you techniques later on in later videos for how you can take the material and create notes in a way that will help you to learn it. But it is very, very important that you understand the text and you really know them very, very well. For poetry, you just learn the poems. For the non-fiction text and the prose pieces and the drama, it'll be about learning a selection, but we'll get to that later. So usual thing, any questions, any problems or anything, just get in touch and I'll do what I can for you. The next video is obviously going to look at how we analyse the evidence that we put on the page. Cheers.